Hi, Ghost Recaps here. Today we will be going through an action, adventure, and sci-fi movie from 2002, named The Time Machine. There will be spoilers ahead in this video, so chill out and enjoy. The story begins in 1899, and we see Dr. Alexander Hartdegen, who is an associate professor of applied mechanics and engineering at Columbia University. He is so busy with his work that he doesn't know the time. His friend and co-worker, David Philby, reminds him that he has to go on a date with his girlfriend Emma, at 5 o'clock today. Hearing this, Alexander quickly picks up his notes and goes back to his house to get ready. At Alexander's house, they are greeted by their housekeeper, Mrs. Watchett. They dress Alexander in flashy new clothes, and he sets out to meet Emma, but he is quickly distracted by a magnificent machine, a horseless carriage. The driver accidentally starts it, and Alexander luckily grabs the brakes and stops it immediately. The driver is grateful and offers Alexander a ride. Alexander really wants to accept the ride, but he has something more important to him, and he keeps on walking in the park. Eventually, he meets his girlfriend Emma, and they walk through Central Park talking. Alexander tells of his deteriorating health and claims that he will get well only if she marries him. Emma tearfully accepts his offer. Alexander takes a ring out of his pocket and gives it to Emma. Just then, a man comes out of the bushes with a gun and demands their wallet and jewelry. When Alexander tries to retaliate, the robber points his gun at her. Alexander complies and gives the robber his wallet and watch. As the man tries to take the ring, Alexander fights him, and the gun goes off accidentally. A bullet hits Emma. Alexander holds her in his arms and calls her name as she takes her last breath and dies. 4 years have passed since the accident, and Alexander still hasn't recovered from it. He is busy with his work day and night and looks like he is making something. David and Mrs. Watchett are worried for him. When David visits her that day, she sees something on the other side of the screen and demands David tell her what he is working on. David invites her to dinner once a week and then offers to show her his invention. A week passes, and finally the day comes. Alex prepares himself for the first time since Emma's death. Then he opens the curtain, and we see a machine on the other side. Actually, it was a time machine, and Alexander had been working on this machine for the last 4 years. Ever since Emma's death, he had decided that he would make a time machine and save Emma by traveling in the past. He worked hard day and night to make this machine. It has many wheels and gears, with a chair attached in the middle. Alex sits on it and looks at Emma's picture on the locket. He slowly pulls down a lever, causing a circular shield to form around him. The machine then sets itself in motion. As he pulls the lever towards him, the time starts moving in reverse again. Alexander goes back in time to the day Emma died. A few moments later, we see Alexander in Central Park. Alexander is stunned to see his precious love back. He happily kisses her and says, "I want to tell you something." Emma says, "Let's go to the park," but Alexander immediately refuses because last time they both went to the park, that killed Emma. Alexander tells Emma that we will not go to the park, but we will go to the city. He immediately takes her away from that place and reaches the city. Alexander tells Emma, "You go home now. I will come home at night. I don't know what to do. But remember that I love you and always will." Emma didn't want to leave Alexander at all but still agreed to go home. But before leaving, she asks Alexander for flowers, and as he promised, he drops her by the side of the road to fetch the flowers. But suddenly the horseless carriage starts and scares some of the carriage horses, and what shouldn't happen happens once again. Emma is killed in front of Alexander. Alexander realizes he can't change Emma's destiny no matter what he does. She will die that night. But he doesn't give up. He wondered why he couldn't change the past. He had to find the answer to this question by doing anything. He believes that the people of the future must have found a way to change this factor, so he decided to go to the future. He sits in the machine and pulls the lever down again, this time going to 2030. As he travels through time, he sees that the world around him is changing. He stops the time machine and exits. He sees that humans have made great progress and are now building settlements on the moon. He goes to the New York Library hoping to find a book on time travel, where he meets a hologram of a librarian named Vox 114. Alexander asks why no one can change the past. Then the Vox says that time travel is impossible because we haven't built a time machine yet. Thinking that his luck will be better after a few years, he gets into the machine again and now travels to the year 2037, where he learns that lunar mining operations have disrupted the lunar orbit. As a result, the moon is breaking up and raining large chunks of rock onto Earth. His presence outside a shelter led to 2 military personnel attempting to arrest him, but he escaped. But in the midst of the chaos, he hits his head, which renders him unconscious. The time machine begins its journey, but the unconscious Alex is unable to stop it. Time begins to speed up and thousands of years pass. Trees grow every second, valleys form and even ice ages come and go. When he finally opens his eyes, he sees that he has reached the year 800-2701, and immediately turns off the machine before fainting again. When he wakes up, he's in a clan, he learns from a girl named Mara that the people who survived the destruction of the earth are called Eloise, who built their houses on the rocks of the river. Everyone else spoke an unknown language, while Mara could speak English because she was a teacher. Alexander tells her that he is a time traveler, but Mara tells the others that he is just a wandering fool, so they will not kill him. That night, he stays at the house of Mara and her brother, Kalen. He sees broken pieces of the moon in the sky. At night, Alexander has a dream in which a scary face is calling him, as well as a mysterious door. That's when Alexander wakes up. But the surprising thing was that Mara's brother Kalen also had the same dream. Mara tells Alexander that we all have this dream. The next day, Mara shows Alexander the ruins of some ruined buildings. Alexander was also familiar with this place because the place where his clan was once the city of Manhattan. Mara asks Alexander, "Why did you come from the past to the future?" Alexander says to find an answer to a question, "Why can't I change the past?" Mara says, "Why do you want to change?" She understood that Alexander has lost someone he loves dearly. Sometime later, Alexander takes Mara into his time machine. Both see that it is not damaged. Mara requests that Alexander take Kalen with him to the past. Before Alexander can ask why, a loud noise is heard, and Mara screams and runs to save Kalen while a confused Alexander follows her. Everyone starts running for their lives when, suddenly, Alexander sees some creatures called Morlocks. They used to attack the tribe every day and catch humans and eat them. They used to sink into the ground with people. Alexander sees a creature grab Mara and take her underground. No one knew where they took people because they used to come from inside the ground and go back inside the ground. Alexander tries to ask the others where the Morlocks take them, but Kalen tells him that when they leave, we don't talk about them. Alexander tells Kalen to tell me about the Morlocks so we can save your sister. Kalen says I don't know anything about those creatures, but there is a cave with ghosts nearby that maybe can help him. Kalen takes Alexander to a cave, which Alexander learns is the New York Library. Vox 144's hologram speaks from behind them. Since the technology relied on solar power, it worked for so many years. Alexander is surprised and asks her what is happening in the world now. Vox replies that when the earth was destroyed, many people survived on the ground, which are called Eloise today, but there were some people who went into the ground due to fear and remained there. Due to living inside the ground for millions of years, they evolved, and today they are known as Morlocks. They cannot tolerate sunlight, and because they do not have food, they make humans their prey. After hearing this, Alexander decides to save the people. He tells Kalen to go back to the village. Kalen reveals before leaving that she lost her pocket watch in the attack and the creatures have taken it. Alexander asks rhetorically why they would take it. A few moments later, Alexander enters the skull, walks into the underground caverns, and sees an entire civilization there. He then enters a room and accidentally falls into a pond filled with human remains. Alex is then found by a Morlock and sent to their leader's chamber. Going down to a closed area, he finds Mara in a cage, but her mind was possessed by Uber, who was actually the leader of all Morlocks. Uber explains that when the moon began to crack, some people drowned underground because there was no other way to save their lives. Over the years, they evolved into flesh-eating Morlocks. The others miraculously survive on the surface, and Eloise is repopulated. The Morlocks tried to return to the surface but could not do so due to years of development underground. So they started hunting humans from the surface for food and breeding. Uber also reveals that he has the power to control the minds of both the Eloise and the Morlocks, and through them controls the balance of the world. He has also read Alexander's mind, and learns that he is a time traveler and wishes to bring Emma back. Uber then reveals the reason why Alexander cannot change Emma's fate. He is trapped in a temporal paradox. If Emma had not died, he would never have built the time machine. If she had lived, the time machine would never have existed, and therefore it is impossible for him to go back and use the time machine to save Emma. Uber then concludes that humans cannot change destiny, as it is the result of their own actions. Then he shows Alexander the time machine he brought to the Morlock world. Uber wants to go back to where it came from and no longer disturb the balance of society. Alexander begins to leave quietly but pulls the Uber with him as soon as he starts the machine. Both struggled for some time. Alexander keeps him out of range of the machine, which causes time to pass faster and Uber to die. Time is running out fast, and as Alexander stops the machine, he sees in the future that the Morlocks have destroyed all life on the surface. Alexander then comes back to save Mara and brings him out of the cage. He starts the machine by locking it with his pocket watch, which creates a stream of time distortion that obliterates everything in its path. Alexander comes to the surface with Mara, and then the time machine explodes and the entire Morlock world is destroyed. Alexander could not go back without the time machine, and now he did not want to go. Now he had forgotten Emma and held Mara's hand. In the future, we see Vox teaching the Eloise children about the history of humans. Alexander brings Mara and Kalen to the location where his lab used to be. As he talks to them, in another timeline, David and Mrs. Watchett enter Alexander's laboratory and discuss his disappearance. David claims that Alex is happy wherever he is and offers Mrs. Watchett to work as his housekeeper. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Have a nice day.